Alright, well, time for a little Fleabay edition here this morning. And it's fairly early this morning. It's raining out, so the dog doesn't want to walk. So I thought we would do this very quickly. I say very quickly, I haven't done this for a while, and looks like we have some new stuff here right off the bat. So, Atlas Shapers, first one up. And this is a 7B, wonderful condition, original paint pre-owned. Now, I haven't looked at this at all yet, so you're going to know what I know right off the bat. So, $1,950 or best offer. Well, I can tell you already that's too much because these shapers are not worth that. I did run across the other day a Amico, and I think it was on Facebook Marketplace or something, that they wanted, I think, about the same money for it. You know, the Amico's probably a little more substantially built machine, I'm going to say. You know, you don't see quite as many of them floating around, although they're out there too, I'm sure, if you're looking for them. But I think they're probably, even though I have no experience with them, I would imagine they probably got a little more sustenance there than you find on the Atlas stuff. Anyway, 7B Shaper. Machine is in wonderful condition with original paint, ready to make some chips. This unit comes mounted on an original Atlas stand and has had doors added to enclose the bottom shelf. The shaper is as nice as I've seen in years. Comes with vise, the original clapper box, all handles and belt guards, and runs as it should. Really nice machine. If you're looking for a little shaper to complete your Atlas Craftsman collection, look no further. They're not a collectible. We talked about that before. Listed locally, you know, pick up, although he will, looks like, break it down and do it. So let's look at it here. Big pictures. I don't know if the big pictures are any better than the small pictures. So, I guess let's look at it this way. Okay, that's not an original Atlas vise. So that makes that go to crap. I believe we've got some extra holes here. You know, it had these 4 holes. They were, or, you know, these four holes, I believe, were in the castings, although I could be mistaken. These 3 I do not believe were. I think those were probably added. It is on a stand. You know, there's nothing wrong with it, you know, in condition-wise. Looks to be in pretty good shape. This is a fairly nice-looking machine, although the motor's been changed, I'll tell you already, because this is a double-shaft, double-ended motor. Got shafts on both ends because the pulley is on the other side. So this is not an original motor. That tool holder just looks like just a piece of tool steel with it. The machine looks pretty good initially, although, like I say, it's not pristine. Okay, there's first one. Second one looks to be an original crank handle, although now the thing I would question, is this the original size square hole that goes in here, since this is not the original vise and we're seeing it here? Is that I think that's probably got the larger hole in the center. It's badged Craftsman. Doesn't look like there's a foot underneath it. Badge Craftsman. They punched a hole in the side of this guard for the motor shaft to come out, where they've changed the motor. That's just a high-speed steel tool bit, not a tool holder there so far. We're not seeing an original tool holder. Okay, so we do have a second handle here. So this is going to be the proper sized handle. This handle down here, but we'll probably go with this vise, which doesn't really go with the machine. Not original, like I say. This has got the support on the for the smaller guard. Now, I've questioned off and on. I've seen it on several machines, and I think I've seen it in the parts list too. The earlier machines, or my machine, and a lot of the machines I've seen, don't have this little bracket, and this one's been screwed or riveted on, one of the two. And then I think that would normally bolt up there. Let's see if they show us anything else. There's nothing else in this picture that stands out to me. Looking at it from above, got a little bit of yuck here. You know, I mean, it's been wiped down and cleaned up a little bit, and I think he said that in the description. Pulleys look good from what you can see. Now, see, I have a question there again. Let's look at the difference in the paint here and the paint on the feed mechanism, on the auto feed. Has that been replaced? Has that whole assembly been replaced because the paint doesn't match? Yeah, see, it's got a Homecraft motor on it, half-horse motor. The Homecraft would have been a Montgomery & Ward. Well, so is Rockwell Manufacturing, but Homecraft, I believe, was marketed as Montgomery & Ward's. So definitely not original motor, which we already knew. I don't know if there's a whole lot more to say about this machine. See, this guard's not even mounted to the back. That would have been mounted to that stud right, or that bolt right there. See, I like to see a better picture of these guards, especially because a lot of times these are not original guards. You know, some of these, I've seen some of these that have my reproduction guards on them. And realistically, if they've been cleaned up and repainted or just original, well, you can't tell the difference between mine and an original from outward appearance. You can't really is that a 290 serial number? Yeah, Sears badging. Internally, for the most part, there's nothing that goes wrong with these. So by looking inside, usually we don't learn a whole lot unless something's just really been chewed up, and usually on these shapers they're not. Okay. Yeah, 298 maybe. Maybe 298. Oh, there's a foot underneath it. It's just not down. Okay. Oh, that's correct as it should be. Okay, this is the later alloy guard. There again, the thing to always look for is cracking out here on these two sides, because if they're run to the extent they will break. We've talked about it before. And it doesn't matter if it's a reproduction, if it's a new one. You don't see too many reproductions yet anyway. But it doesn't matter what they are, they will crack out right there, which is why you see so many of these that do not have functioning feed mechanisms, or they're in there and they're cracked. And if you see them cracked on there, the feed mechanism's not going to work properly. It doesn't matter if it's a small crack, whatever the case is, they don't work right from what I've seen in my experience. It's not a bad looking machine. There's our final picture here. Not a bad looking machine. Is it a $1,900 machine? No. I'm going to be real generous here. Now, see, I don't believe we ever saw a good picture of this guard from the outside. I'm going to be real generous here and say this is a $1,200 machine, because I don't think these are worth more than, you know, completely tooled with an original vise. You know, they might go to $1,500, and I'm being generous now because it seems like everything, parts-wise, machine tool-wise, it seems like everything has taken a tremendous jump as I look at the things that that I'm utilizing in my shop, the things that I'm buying and just pricing out stuff. Why, everything has gone way up, but I don't believe it's a $1,950 machine. Like I say, it's $1,250 machine maybe on a good day. These machines are not worth that. You know, I don't care how you look at it, from, you know, what standpoint you look at it, even as a collectible. The machines are not a collectible. But when you compare these to the Amicos, the Logans, the South Bend Shapers, this is kind of at the bottom of the list. You know, a lot of the other machines are built a little bit better, and from a functional standpoint, they're going to be a little bit stouter machine, I think. So anyway, that's where we're at with that. Here's another one. Atlas benchtop metal shaper machine, 7-inch model 7, machinist, vintage tool. They want $1,550 for it, and local pickup only. And this is a reseller of, probably looks like junk just from his name. Complete and appears to be in good working order. Complete with the following: Walker Turner Company, the driver size 18 frame, half horsepower, 1740 RPM, cast iron stand, wooden table and shelf, original clapper, original motor, 6x6 work table, appears to have all handles and knobs. Yeah, this is a junk reseller. Yeah, this is I'm gonna make whatever I can off of whatever I can get. Okay, which is fine, you know, if that's what you're gonna do. But all right, big pictures here. Let's see if we can't get the pictures up here. Okay, original Atlas stand. Shells, you know, used and abused. Now this is a model 7. This is not a 7B because we don't have the foot. The table's different. No guard. We do have an original vise. I see the side covers on down here. So no guard on this side. No mount on the bottom of the oil tray for the guard. And I see a different color there. So we'll see if we can't get a little bit better look at that. I'd like to see a little bit better pictures. They've got scarring up here, which means they've had a longer, see the markings here, they've had a longer tool holder in here, or a longer bar, a longer something that's whacked against there. Handle's not busted off. Original vise. Yeah, the Model 7 is not nearly as desirable. Now see, this will have the earlier cast iron feed system. And I believe they went away from this cast iron feed system because it, when you ran it to the end of its travel, why, it would break something else on the machine rather than the housing. You know, this housing was the fuse of the system. If you wanted something to break, it was going to be the least expensive part. And back in those days, that was probably the least expensive part. It does have a handle for it. Looks to be a proper handle, although we'll have to see a little bit closer. And it does have a original stand, which is a plus for them. Yeah, this is the original cast iron cover. And if you look at the ones that these guys are 3D printing, and you know I'm not a fan of that anyway for these, that's what they model them after. They're squared off here on this, you know, like the original cast irons were. And they're easier to model up and print out. So got what looks to be an original switch in it, or it's at least got an original switch cover. Pulleys look to be proper for it. There again, double-ended motor. You know, these were used on other stuff, and the Atlas did not put these out with double-ended motors as far as I know. That's a lathe tool holder rather than a shaper tool holder. Okay. Yeah, see, you can see the whack marks here on the top of the slide. Grimy and grungy. Now looking at the size of that cord, is this a 120 machine or is this a 3-phase machine? Yeah, see, we don't have any holes at all on the side of this. Of course, the early ones, this is different than the later 7Bs. I think the 7Bs had 4 holes here in each of the corner threaded holes, and if not, a lot of them were added. But that previous machine had those extra 3 holes up here, and I don't believe that's... Okay, it is only a single-phase motor, but it's a Walker-Turner motor. Okay, so there we go. You know, 7 as opposed to being a 7B, from a collector standpoint, it's probably more valuable from a collector standpoint, but the reality is you don't want it as a collector. You know, you want it as a working machine. So it's not nearly as desirable. It's worth half. You know, no guards. No tooling. You do have a stand, which is the only plus to it. But, yeah, it's a $700 machine, $750 machine. That's all it's worth. Okay, what else do we got? Here is a Atlas belt cover 4. It's got mill or shaper and question marks, 10-42. This is, they want $74.99 for it and $17.99 delivery. This is the guard for on the tool post grinder. And I talked a while back, I'd actually built up a pattern for these, and I've got them, actually they're listed as out of stock on the website. I don't know how much I've got on them. I don't think it's that much. I suppose I could go look real quick. This is just the, this is the guard for the tool post grinder. I do not know much about these, so I'm selling as is with no returns. So I'm just looking here. I'm looking at feedback to see kind of what we're... Yeah. Junk dealer. Junk dealer. Which, there again, as I said before, there's nothing wrong with that. But you need to be a little bit more knowledgeable about what you're selling when you start playing with machine tool stuff. A lot of the descriptions you'll see have basically disclaimers in them saying that, you know, I don't really know anything about it, so you buy it at your discretion because I'm not taking it back, which I guess is okay if you're knowledgeable enough, but a lot of times they'll suck people in that don't really know, and maybe they do know a little more than what they're actually letting on. But yeah, this is the guard for the tool post grinder, for the Atlas tool post grinder. And there's nothing wrong with this. This one's a cast iron guard. My reproductions are aluminum, of course, is all I'm at, because I think in this day and age for what we use them for, you know, back in the day, why cast iron was less expensive than it was to do aluminum alloys, basically. So yeah, nothing really show. There's nothing wrong with the guard. It's in good condition for what it is. Paint's chipped up and stuff, but that's fine. Let's go and look real quick and see. Let's see what I've got those listed at. I don't believe I've ever sold one of these. So let's go and see what I've got them listed at. Listed for. Oh, I'm showing us a bunch of stuff out of stock again. I got to get back on the ball and start casting again. Oh, where are we? Where are we? Where are we? Huh. Well, did I pass them? Oh, I've got $90 on them. And I don't have a picture up either. But I show those out of stock. That's not something that I've really done much of anything with. So, yeah, a lot of the stuff's been going out the door here lately. Guards, larger guards. I got a couple of smaller shaper guards. I've really taken the tact of just kind of finishing these out. The paint finish is not perfect on these castings because I used to try and really have a nice even finish on them, have them be, you know, closer to a show quality finish even though they weren't. I've gotten to where I'm going back now, I'm spraying a surfacer on them to get a pretty high build, and I'm putting a coat of gray on them. It's going to make it easier for you to repaint them to match your machines. And I can, you know, I could spend 2 or 3 hours more on one of these guards, and you're certainly not going to want to pay, you know, for me another 2 or 3 hours labor. So I've been having a lot of fun with these mugs, these, you know, branded mugs. I've got them. They're all listed on the website right now. I'm actually almost out of stock on some of those. I'm going to have to restock some of them, but I'll sit down. I've had a little bit of confusion off the website here lately. It's not treating me the way I think it should. I'm not getting the notifications that I should when items are sold. So I've had a couple of bobbles, and then I've had some guys that have double ordered and things like that. So we want to eliminate that because that cost me money to refund some of those, and I'm going to have to probably start passing on that extra credit card fee if I'm refunding stuff, because I still pay a fee on that. So anyway, let's go back to what we were looking at here. So if you're looking for one of these guards, you know, it's going to be cheaper than one of mine. Well, they're wanting another $18 to ship it. So they're pretty comparable to my reproductions. So pays you money, takes you chances. So anyway, let's move on here. And there's some stuff being parted out here. There's a S7 124 shaper pulley. They're wanting $89.99 and $10 shipping. You know, there we're back to that's almost a going rate, but that's too much. You know, these pulleys should be going for $50 maybe on a good day. You know, so I don't know. I think things have gotten crazy here, and the only description says as shown. It doesn't really tell. Yeah, this is more machinist and automotive related, it looks like, although there's a little bit of everything from this seller. You know, if you're gonna spend this much money for these pulleys, then they're gonna get that much money, and that's where they're gonna stay. I won't spend this much money for them. It's too much. This has been sleeved. That would have been a standard bore in there, so somebody's added the sleeve to this, it looks like. I think anyway, looking at it, I'm sure it is. Look at how it's rounded here at the entrance and things. Going to be a good functional pulley. Is it worth $90 and $11 shipping? I don't think so. $100, in your door for 65 or 70 is probably going to be fair. Right below it, counter shaft, hanger, and rocker shaft, S721, S7120. They want $80 and $10.95. It's going to be the same seller. Yeah, they're parting out a machine here. This is showing a little bit of rust. I'm not going to look at this very closely, but no, the whole counter shaft assembly, the complete assembly, with the bracket that mounts to the machine and everything, 130, maybe 140, 150 in the door. And there's a bunch of bunches. Oh no, this is a different seller. Atlas 7B metal shaper cross rail plates. These are the mounting plates that hold the ram in place. $19.95 or best offer. This is from one of the sellers that normally sells a lot of stuff. They want another $10 to ship it. This is the junk off of the machine. We can look at the big pictures of this very quickly. It's the bolts, the 4 bolts that hold those down, which are only a 5/16 or a 3/8 bolt. There's nothing really vintage about them. The ones you see on machines of they carry a little bit different profile than modern replacements, but it's the same bolt. You got 2 plates with 4 holes down them, and you got a couple of screwed up shims when they disassembled the machine. These are worth $10. Why do you want this crap? You're not going to be any better off. It's going to be war. Do they show the bottom sides of these? See, this still shows most of the jeweling on top. Now, this is off an early enough machine. It doesn't have the oilers in the top. Normally you would see a Gitz oiler on either side of these that help lube those rams. So you're going to have the same wear along here on both of those. Now, it may not be excessive, but you're still going to have that same wear. The shims are there. What are you going to use those old bent up shims for? You need to replace those if you're redoing it. You're gaining nothing by buying this crap, and that's all it is just crap. Right below it now, here's the knee. Here's the knee that came off the same machine. See photos for what is included. They want $99.95 or best offer, but then they want another $106.30 for delivery. Same seller. Seller's got good feedback, but it's still the same shit. This is a part of that machine. I see a whole bunch of stuff listed here. Let's look at this knee very quickly. What's the description say? Yeah, it doesn't say anything except please review photos and email any questions. So you can already see you got chewed up screws here on the back. Looks like that head's kind of chowdered up a little bit. You don't have the covers or the felts that go with it. You got a couple of hold down bolts for the vise that's not there. You got rust on the top. You can see where the vise sat. cattywampus or something laid on it cattywampus for who knows how long. Whole bunch of rust there on the side of it looks like. That's pretty rusty looking. So that picture doesn't show anything any different at all. Got a hole right in the center. I don't believe that is proper. I don't believe we originally had a threaded hole there, although I could be mistaken. Okay, this is a 7B. You got the foot underneath it. Look at how rusted up and crunchy this is. Now these holes have all been added here. Those are not original from Atlas. Which those don't affect anything, but you know, on the one hand, these guys want to talk about these being a collectible. Well, I don't consider them a collectible anyway, as we well know. But if they're a collectible, you want them in original, pristine condition to be collectible. And if they've got extra holes drilled and tapped in them, punched in them, whatever, they're not original. Sorry, but they're just not. Now see, this has got 2 bolts, and these look to be probably original or close to original square head bolts that would mount your vise on. We should have 4 of them, because the shaper vise had 4 holes in the base to mount it on there. Same way with the rotary table for this, it had 4 bolts in it. So the accessories that Atlas offered that came with this machine had 4 hold down bolts. Is it a big deal? Probably not. But there again, we're starting to nitpick about originality here. So I would speculate it had somebody else's vise on it, because the actual shaper vise pretty much covered the whole table, and there was, you know, 4 hold down bolts that aligned with the 2 outer T-slots. It's not too often you actually get to see up inside these, and because they're all just grungy and there's just a hole in them. Yeah, it's original. There's nothing wrong with it, but you know, it's a grungy old table. Is it worth $200? No. No, 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 no. See, look at how chowdered up those holes are in all of those Allen screws. This has been on and off something a whole bunch of times, it looks like. Look at how rusty it is on the way there. It hasn't been, and that's probably just surface rust, but it hasn't been on a machine and running for quite some time. Anyway, that's what we got there. Value-wise, worth $100 in your door, you know, so it's worth less than half of that. Same way, shaper cross rail casting, $24.95, and then they want another $54.95 delivery. You can ship that cross rail for $20, so you're getting ripped off on delivery. See, that turns me off to stuff right off the bat. If you're not going to be honest about, you know, within reason. I mean, if you put that at $30 delivery, I wouldn't like it, but I wouldn't bitch too bad about it, because by the time you package stuff up, you pay for packing material, you know, box it up, deliver it to the post office and all that stuff, you know, it'd be worth $30. But no, why not put $30 on there and you want 50 for it? You know, $49.99. So you come up with basically the same thing. At least that's honest advertising. I'm not going to go in and look at this. There's no sense. There's, you know, it's just a cross rail. It's a stripped out cross rail. There's nothing in it other than the casting. So the casting's worth $25. If you need a casting, which you don't need a casting, but if you needed a casting, it's worth $25, but you're getting ripped off on shipping. So shaper crank gear, different seller, $40 and 1870 shipping. Oh, you don't need one. You're never getting, none of these are ever going to break. Okay, metal lathe tool post grinder. You want $550 and $193 to deliver it. I don't recognize this seller at all. He's got a bunch of feedback. This is a rip. These, they were advertising these for 400 bucks, and that's too much money for these old tool post grinders. But then you should be paying 40 bucks delivery, maybe 50 bucks delivery, if you want one. So, it should be $450 in your door. We can go in and look at it. It's going to be a wore out piece of crap old Atlas tool post grinder. Okay, this is the machinery dealer, so that's why a lot of times you'll see these dedicated tool dealers that have an actual storefront. They'll put this stuff up. They'll want these extraordinary prices for them anyway, but then they'll put them out here for that extraordinary price, and then want big shipping on top of it. 193 bucks for USPS ground advantage. No, that's to ship. That's going to be, I'm guessing, 40 bucks. So what does it say? And chances are this thing's wore out. Someone has added a coat of paint at some point in time. Was last being used on an Enco 12-inch lathe. See, so they took in or bought out a Emco machine, and this came with it. So, they're trying to quadruple their money on this stuff. So let's look at the big pictures of it and see what we see here. Wore out belt. Let's look at the bigger pictures. That belt's, probably still functional, but it's a piece of shit. Yeah, it's been repainted, which neither here nor there, but not really a great job if you're going to take the time to do it. Small grinder. Chances are the bearings are gone in it. Both on the spindle and the motor, probably. Depending on how it was run. Standard Atlas motor that came on these. No guard. There's not really a whole lot to look at on this. It's, I think it's probably got wore out bearings just from, what normally happens with them. Wore out grinding wheel. These take, I think, a 3/8 bore grinding wheel. Sometimes they can be kind of tough to find. They're out there. They're not as bad as trying to find a Unimec grinding wheel type of thing, but I think last time I was kind of looking at stuff for these, why they weren't, you had to hunt for them a little bit. Now see, it's got this mounting plate. If it was last used on an Emco lathe, the T-slot's not going to be right. That you can tell from looking at it, that's not right. So you're going to be building parts there or hunting more parts. See, that's just somebody's flat plate they've to fit the Emco lathes compound slide. I mean, this is one of those deals where it's not a bad machine to be buying, or it's not a bad attachment to be buying if you need one, want one type of thing. But they're thinking they're worth gold, and they're not. They've been in there with their screwdriver to scrape the gunk off from in there to make it look a little more presentable. But there again, look at them and you know that they're a piece of something. There's your switch box. I can't tell if that's original or if that's, the cord's obviously been replaced, which is fine. That may very well be the original box, although I think those just had a small toggle switch mounted on top. I'm not sure. I don't remember. I think there may be a little bit more added to that than was original, but maybe not. That may be the way it was. So anyway, Not worth nearly that. You know, 550 and 750. It's worth half. Half. Original lock assembly for Atlas 7-inch metal shaper runner support. This is the lock that holds the foot in position. These normally are really sticky. You know, once you tighten them down to hold that support, the tables get ran down with them locked in position, things like that. They tend to get really sticky on here. They want $10 and 1024 delivery. Why would you buy a piece of crap? You know, this is, you're not going to gain anything. Clean and very good condition. Well, it's, if you need one, I guess it's okay. Why do you need one? So you can see the imprinting here on it from where it lived its life. So your edges here a little bit. It's probably worth that for the stud and the washer, and maybe the rest of it too, but there again, why would you need one? And I would speculate this is not original, although I could be mistaken. Most of them were set up for a square nut, so you didn't have a hex broached in here. So maybe that is original. Maybe Atlas did those on some of them, on the supports. I haven't actually looked at mine, I don't think, in all the years. But most of these, like on the shaper or on the milling machines and things that took these locks, why they had a square hole broached into them rather than a hex. Table runner support from the same seller wants another $10 for the whole foot, and then $10 delivery. See, that's a decent price, but they're put out there for $10 because you don't need them. Nobody needs them. Atlas 7-inch shaper door S7-89 original pre-owned, $150 of best offer and $19.60 delivery. See, and most of these sellers have got really good feedback, but their prices are way. Door for an Atlas 7-inch shaper has original paint, knobs, and sign. Paint is slightly chipped at the edges. Might be, oh, we've looked at this before. Might be missing a retainer clip. Not sure how it was supposed to be factory. If you don't know how it was, it's worth a whole lot less than what you're asking for it. When you get talking big bucks, you know, anytime you say, oh, I don't know how it worked, now you're getting ripped in. This is a good door. There's nothing wrong with the door. Pretty grungy, you know, pretty grungy through there. Good functional door. Got an original badge on it. You know, I've been playing with these badges, but I etched some early on. Didn't really like the results I got for something that I was going to put on the website. I've been playing with sublimation stuff a little bit, although I haven't really fully developed them with that, which is not going to be original, but looks pretty good. Does have the knob. You know, we've looked at this one before. Not a whole lot of sense in it, but yeah, this is not original here for a latch, and he should know that. So, they're worth $150. No, $100 in the door maybe. I don't know what I get for those, for my reproductions. They don't have the badging on them, and they don't have the latch. They're just the door. Where are they here? Yes, I put $100 on a reproduction door. So I guess if you factor in that you're getting the knob and you're getting the badging on them, you know, that's going to add something to it. But are they worth $150? I don't think so. And a lot of times I will value a reproduction more than I will value an original, just because the originals a lot of times are used. You know, I mean, they've been used and abused. You're not gaining anything. You know, these shaper doors, the originals were cast iron, mine are in aluminum. I don't think is that badge and knob worth an extra $50. Maybe to some people it is. To me, it's not. You know, and 7B parts list catalog. 7B, this is the shaper parts list and the little manual that you got. 7-inch shaper unbound, brand new, $12 or best offer in $447. That's too much money. You know, I think I think I've had mine that are all bound and reprinted on heavy stock and stuff, I think for about the same price. So they're just not worth it. 7B shaper table needless screw and lift nut, S743 and S7-72 pre-owned, $46.99. Buy it now on 8/24 delivery. It's a wore out piece of shit. Why would you buy that stuff? That's all of these shafts, threaded stuff, lead screws. It's junk. Why do you want it? It's junk. Okay. Same way. S732 crossfeed nut, pre-owned, $29.99 and $5.99. It's a wore out piece of shit. These crossfeed nuts are wore out. It's junk. Junk. And they're going to tell you, I haven't looked yet, but they're going to tell you it's in good condition, fair condition. Fair condition. It's a wore out piece of shit. That's what it is. Let's look at them very quickly. These things are wore out. Look how chowdered up that is inside. That's where the set screw locks it in place. That's okay, but yeah, this is wore out. The threads in these are going to be gone. They're not going to match your screw that you're trying to put them on. You know, I said before, and that's why I haven't gone back to producing these nuts again. I can do them. I've done them before for most of the machines, but they need to be matched with a new lead screw or a new screw that fits them. So yeah, don't buy this shit. It's just junk. Stud bushing, yeah, this is parting out machines. 2 Atlas Shaper S7-15 crank throw block nuts, pre-owned, $34.95. They're used. They're junk. And why do you have 2 of them unless you parted out 2 machines and this is the crap you got left over that you can't sell? Shaper screw and feed nut S756 and S7-15. Okay, so, and this is the same seller except he's selling the screw with it, $39.95. And free delivery. So, description says 1 Atlas 7B shaper, metal shaper screw, part number S756 and feed nut 15. This Atlas screw and nut are in good used condition. Please see photos. What you see is what I ship. They're wore out. I don't even have to look at them. They're wore out. Okay, now you're going to see wear, grit, grime, and stuff on your machines as you use them. They're going to build up. They're going to build up crap. But on a part that's been taken out that they're going to tell you is in good condition, fair condition, whatever the case may be, that's showing all this shit down inside, that's been beating itself up inside of there and grinding itself in. That's the only picture they show. But yeah, this is a grungy piece of crap. You know, that's all dried and grungy oil and crap down in there. And the nut's going to match what's in this screw. You know. So imagine how oversized and chewed up the inside of that nut's going to be. It's junk. Milling machine vice handle, $285 for best offer. No. No. $100. $100 is all they're worth. $100. Don't need to look any farther. I think we're down into stuff that I've looked at before. Yeah, see, right down here's the reproduction, and it says last one. This is one of the sellers that has had some of these cast up and built. Atlas 7 S7-100 milling machine shaper vice crank handle, 3/8 square hole, new, brand new, for $125.99 and $10.50 delivery. So as much as I think these crank handles are overpriced anyway, that's a whole lot better than the $285 they're wanting for the one that's up here. Yeah, here's another seller selling the same shaper screw and feed nut, S756 and S715, $42.99 and $5.85 delivery. This one, just from the thumbnail, looks a whole lot better than the last one, but they're still no. Bunch of feed ratchet gear case covers, 3D printed stuff. Yeah, no. I think we've looked at the most of this stuff anyway, and there's no sense. It's the same old crap. The main thing that was interesting to me was those two complete machines right off the bat. So we'll leave that right there. Let's go very quickly and see what we've got for milling machines. You know, it seems like when I do these, I tend to do the shapers and the mills because I think they interest me more than okay, and we've got a couple of mills here. I don't know if we've looked at them before. This first one is horizontal milling machine, $2,500 at best offer, pickup only, and this is from the same seller that just had a shaper listed for big bucks. So he's got good feedback, but these machines are not worth that much money. Not worth it. Nice example of the Atlas horizontal milling machine. Original paint on this machine has the original stiffener and crossfeed mechanism is complete. Negative is there a missing lower belt guard on a previous owner drilled and tapped several holes in the table. Shown in pics which could actually be useful in a number of applications. Aside from these two items, this is about as clean as they get. Runs as it should and ready to make chips. Yeah, this is the same one that had a shaper, told you basically the same thing, only driven by a little old lady to church on Sunday. And it's just not true. It's just not true. So it's got a light that Atlas made an original light very similar to this. I do not believe that's an Atlas light. I have a original light on my lathe, on the production lathe that I assembled, and the light that I have originally, the history on it is it came on it had been mounted on a Delta drill press that I bought at auction here years and years ago, and it was several years when I was redoing that lathe that I discovered that was an original light, Atlas light that had been mounted there. So I don't think this is an original to the Atlas. So this looks a little bit, the shade on it looks different. So as nice as they get, the charts are all faded. They've been cleaned too many times, probably steel wool down. The speed chart's all chowdered up. You know, paint's gone off of it. The speed selector window's not a whole lot better. Let's see, we'll have to look at it closer where those bolts mount that light on. Maybe that is different. Yeah, maybe that is different. Those are not, it doesn't have the proper handles on top. Yeah, we've looked at this machine before. I don't think, you know, this stud's been changed here. That's not original to Atlas. No knob there. Rusted up piece of shit table. We'll see better pictures of this table, I would imagine, but cutter gouges on it. Arbor driver, arbor. I'm not seeing a drawbar. Don't see a drawbar there. And I don't know if that's a 7/8 or a 1-inch arbor. Moving on. Yep, missing the lower belt guard. I have to get a better look at that. Yeah, there's no drawbar in here. Just got a couple of bolts locking the arbor in place. Okay, that's a different bracket they mounted the light on. Other than missing that lower guard, I don't see anything really wrong here that I can identify yet anyway. Got the kick out. I don't see a lock on these gibs, although it may be there and I'm just not seeing it. This table is all scarfed up. There, looks like it's scarfed up there. I think that's a later model kickout, if I'm not mistaken. They built two different kickouts for these. One on the earlier machines and one on the later. I'm not sure if that knob's proper for the back gear shifter. That's not really showing us anything we haven't already seen. There we go, not an original motor. We should have a hinge bracket that goes there and then the lower guard. Missing those. From a functional standpoint, you're probably not losing out by having the table drilled and tapped if it's indeed tapped, but you're not gaining anything either. So it's an okay machine. Maybe that's the proper knob for there, maybe not, I'm not sure. Table's okay, but there's nothing great about it. We still got a bunch of pictures. Let's go move through this a little bit quicker and see what we got. I mean, this is normal wear and tear. That's pretty faded. And you can see the chrome, the plating flaking off of the handles. You know, even the feed mechanism underneath is all faded out. Switch label's kind of crooked on there, not a big deal. It's an MFC 8584. This is quite a bit later machine, which you could tell by looking at it anyway, but look at that speed chart. That's just bad. It's just bad. This will have larger, the larger belts on it, since it's only a 2-position or 2-groove belts. Got another little hole back underneath there. Not sure what that's about. Leland motor. I don't know if there's a whole lot of sense in going in and looking at this any farther. It's not a bad machine, but it's not a great machine either. Holes. 2, 3, 4, 8, 9, 10 holes been drilled in it. And that table's pretty chowdered up, really. Look at the rust on it and all the little rust markings down in it. Anyway, there we are. Is it worth $2,500? No. $1,200 machine. It's worth half. 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 Milling machine drawbars. I've got some of these that I need to finish up. I've got a couple of them at least that I just need to finish the last little bit. I only want $85. Got one bid and $10.85 delivery. What do I got for drawbars here? What do I got for a price on drawbars? Maybe I'll work on those a little bit today. See, I've got $60 on a drawbar, even though I show them out of stock. Yeah, maybe I'll finish up a couple of drawbars today. And I would build them out of stainless. Yeah. So $60 and I don't know, $10 shipping, $12 shipping, something. Maybe I'll do that today. All right, here's another one. Vintage Atlas MFC horizontal milling machine, pre-owned, $2,500 or best offer. New seller. New seller. And I suspect that this is somebody starting out as a junk seller. Heavy duty precision engineering, built to last, US, made in the USA. Feast your eyes on this classic Atlas MSC horizontal mill, complete with the iconic change-o-matic gearbox and a rock-solid cast iron base. It's in Chicago. New seller that's gonna sell whatever they can to make a buck. Okay. So iconic, $2,500. I think it's probably local pickup. So it's actually, just from the initial look at it, looks to be a pretty clean machine. Missing the knob here. Got overarm knobs, although they look to be a little bit pitted, but they do have, or the locks, but they do have them. Got the bar. Got the guards. I don't see a drawbar. There's a lot of stuff I don't see here for this machine. It's actually got the knob on this lower guard, which you don't see a whole lot of. top. From the back, got an Atlas motor on it. It's probably got the original motor. There's the proper hinge that goes with that guard. Now this is what I was talking about when I talk about the quality of Atlas castings and why I don't worry about mine as much. This is, look at how much fallout and everything we've got at the back of this casting. And that was, these were produced inexpensively, you know, by Atlas. They were cranking them out, making their money, and getting them into the hands of the users. So their castings, especially on stuff like guards, just a lot of the things were not really a high quality casting at all. A lot of them were kind of junky. This has got a different, the cord's been replaced, which is normal on these. There's nothing wrong with that at all. Got a fair amount of surface rust and stuff, it looks like, on the table. The handles look good. I'll be interested to see that support there. That's what mounted the coolant system, but it looks like somebody's done something, built their own or something. That doesn't look like a factory Atlas. But yeah, that's the quality of the castings. Since they've got sand fallout and pits, and this one actually still looks pretty good. I've seen some that are pretty grungy, so I've gotten to where I don't worry about mine a whole awful lot, just because they're designed to be, you know, mine are going to be in as good a condition as some of the older ones. Now, this is a later model machine, which we knew anyway, because it's got the straight shaft here. The real early machines, the MF, like my little MF and some of the early MFCs, they had a short tapered section here. This will accept the overarm bar. It's got the kick out on it. Handle's busted. Handle's busted for back gear. And this right here, what do we got going on here? I'm not sure. Let's look farther and see what we've got. Yeah, you can't really read that number. A lot of these switches failed on these machines because look at the oil and the guns that's behind this and kind of dripping out. On all of the machines, I think there was a tendency to have oil drip off of the bearings, the slideways, things like on the shaper, bearings on the mills, same way on the lathes. Oil would get in there over the years, come down and just destroy that switch. So that's why when you see these switches that they want $20 and $30 for these used piece of crap switches, and they're touting them as being original, you're better off going to your big box store or your electrical supplier, wherever you go, spend $10 and buy a brand new switch and put on there. You're going to be farther ahead, and they look just the same. You can't tell the difference, you know. So don't waste your money on original stuff. So you don't have the right bolt in here, so we've added some nuts and spacers. But yeah, there again you can see casting marks, casting lines on these. They're not a, I mean, there's nothing wrong with them, but they're not a pristine casting. Now, I had said, there again, I'm looking at this little stud sticking out here, which is where your gear mounts. That last one I said, I did not think those were original. Now, I've seen a couple of these that do have that style of a nut on there, so maybe they did do that. Maybe they did do that nut from Atlas. Larger two-sheave pulley, where the earlier ones had 3, and it used a smaller belt. Smaller width belt. Yeah, this is an add-on that somebody's built for the coolant system. The original mount that went on these was basically the same as the 6-inch Atlas lathe tailstock lead screw support, and it bolted to the back side of this casting right here. There's 2 holes there that it bolted into. The table's in decent shape. So there's the pictures of that. And the bottom line is, you know, this is a relatively clean machine. There's no tooling. Now see, this is a pulley on here, which is what I thought it probably was. They had a, they would have had a vertical attachment, like a Marvin vertical attachment that was on this machine. And that's why we don't see any of the other little parts and pieces that go with it, probably. So I didn't notice anything from the same seller, but very possible that there's going to be a vertical head listed someplace here on Fleabay, or was one or the other. But yeah, that's what this is. This is a pulley that ran the belts for the Marvin vertical head, or a Marvin style vertical head, and that's what would have been on this machine. Inner guards and bolts, $69.99 and $31.20 delivery. See, there's a big rip off there too. What's the description say? I don't really recognize this seller per se. And it says absolutely nothing. Good condition. This is going to be a tool dealer, but I think a junk dealer as much as anything else. Inner guard, $69.99, and then the shipping for them. No, there's no reason you need one of these. These are, I mean, how are you gonna need to replace this? This holds your gearing here, it bolts to the back and supports the cover on it. There's no way that you need one of these. This thing, I suppose we could look at bigger pictures, but there's no reason to. This is going to be standard condition. This is the way you're going to find them when they list them on eBay, and all they're doing is parting out a machine. There's nothing to go wrong with these. There's no reason in the world to need one of these. There's just none. And what did they want for it? $70, and then another $31.20 shipping. No, this is worth $20 and $15 shipping. It's worth $35. It's worth half in your door. It's worth less than half because they want $31.20. $70, they want $100 for this thing. No, it's worth $30 in your door is all it's worth. So don't get screwed over by these guys. Knee screw assembly, gear and dial, $79.99, $16.95. That's probably, without going in and looking at it, and I suppose we could, that's probably fair for what this is, but why do you need it? And this is an early one. This came off of the early machine because you've got this taper on here. This came off of an MF machine, I'm guessing, or maybe an early MFC, but all of the later ones, this was a straight 1-inch shaft here to accept the overarm support. This is off an early machine, condition used, very good condition. Now it's a wore out piece of shit. This is from the same seller, parting out a machine. Nothing in the description at all. Okay, we'll go right off of this one and look at another. There's another milling machine listed here. I don't know if we've looked at it or not. Anyway, if we look at this gear assembly, you know, it's complete. It's in okay condition. Look at the staining on there. You know, it's going to be good and functional. But in reality, if I was replacing one, I wouldn't replace it with an early shaft, or, you know, with an early collar there. If you're replacing one and putting them together, why would you do that? Why not just have a why not have the later abilities to have an overarm support if you're doing that? It's going to be functional, but you don't want it. Okay, I was going to go right on down. I saw another machine listed here. Atlas horizontal, MH horizontal milling machine, pre-owned, $32.99 plus shipping. And this is from a dealer that I've actually dealt with. I get stuff from them. They've treated me okay. I've only had one dealings with them, but they've done okay for me. Condition is used and freight. So, like I say, I'd purchased, and I think it was raw materials from them, and it got lost in transit, something like that. They took care of it immediately. They were very good to deal with. But this is a model MH, and this is listed as you would from an industrial seller, from an actual tool dealer. They do have a warehouse. This is not your fly-by-night whoever. This is not your normal junk dealer. Tested and works as it should. And they do industrial stuff. So let's take some time and look at it. It's not going to be worth this much money. You know, I'll tell you that right off the bat, because none of these machines are. So let's look at it here. And this has been used. Oh, this is an MA. This is actually this machine here, which is very rare, which is why I'm building one of them. Still don't think they're worth that much money, but nonetheless, we have there's several things interesting about this machine, and this is going to be an early machine. So we do have a drawbar here. We do have an arbor, whether it's that almost looks like maybe a 1-inch arbor, 7/8 or 1 inch, but anyway, it's the arbor. Somebody's added a guard over the top of it. They've drilled into the overarm support, which I've not seen done before. That's kind of unique to what I'm used to seeing. It's got let's say, is that a just switch, or is that the, must just be switching. Okay. So, and see, this is early enough that this hinge is cast into the casting. You know, we've talked about those before. Most of what you've seen and everything we've looked at today has the holes drilled in here. I'm intrigued by this because, as I say, you don't see these machines very often. But I don't understand what this all is. They've had something on here, whether it's a coolant pump, lube, whatever. Anyway, it's got a original vise. It looks to be an original vise, and it has the production handles on it. So now this, is that a hole through there, or is that, no, that's just the plug. Duh. That's just the plug where they plug it in. So they've changed this to be the switching. And this machine's been used industrial from the looks of it. And with that sticker on it, this was probably a government machine. You know, Army, Navy, something. Atlas MH, yeah, look at all the yuck. All the yuck. MH, I can't see that serial number yet, though. What do we got? Yeah, this was in an industrial environment. This was in a this to me is kind of intriguing here. Is that I'm wondering if that's a spacer. If that's just an outboard spacer and our arbor actually aligns on that, which would indicate to me that maybe this was wore out, something was not quite as it should be. Although there's no arbor driver on here. Interesting. This is a well-used and abused machine, but interesting nonetheless. There's a bunch of pictures here. A lot of these are not good pictures. You can't tell anything from that. Out of focus thing. Missing the vice jaw there. It looks like missing both vice jaws. Not sure what those slots are for, what they've done there. What else do we see? Like I say, no arbor driver, which it may very well be rusted in there hard enough that it's not going to turn anyway. It's in rough shape. Rusted. Rusted, rusted. I wonder if they've just built an extension here and it's set screwed in to lock it in place, and then it's been machined to center that up. Motor's been changed out, I can tell already from looking at it. I don't remember ever seeing a vise with it cast like that, and it looks like that is cast from what I can see. I wonder if it, I don't know. The proper milling machine vise. Maybe those are machined in later. I don't know. I don't recognize those two. It's a rough machine. Handle's been replaced. Does have the gib lock. Motor's been replaced. That's an interesting cover, oil cover. These are the production handles. So this raises and lowers your knee. And this is your table traverse, back and forth. Production handles, so back and forth. You'll see this when I get mine farther along or finished up, one of the two. There's a lot of pictures here, and I am taking a lot of time because this does kind of intrigue me. Yeah, see, this has been machined out here for, I think somebody has remachined this vise to, for whatever reason. They may have had some specific fixture for something in here that they screwed vice jaws on and found it was easier to lock it in position that way, maybe. Interesting. Interesting. And I'm just going to go through all the pictures just because it does intrigue me. Now, this is a late enough machine. It's got the coolant tank cover on the back, whereas my early MF has it on the side. Doesn't have proper guarding, but that's really not that surprising. Now, early on, you could buy these machines without the guards were an accessory. So this being purchased by government agency, maybe it was ordered without the guards, or maybe the guards weren't even offered yet. So they've added their own guards later on, makeshift guards later on. This is where your coolant arm would mount here, but I can't really tell what they've done there. Motor, of course, has been changed. We knew that. Let's see, these two holes is where your little mount went. They may have mounted a light on here, maybe, or some sort of a custom guard, but this is the same spacing and basically the 6-inch lead screw support on the outboard end. Why it gets put right on there, and there's a bar that goes through there that is adjustable to put your coolant tank out there, or your coolant hose mount type thing. This to me is kind of a find to be able to see these, because you just don't. Yeah, I don't know what they've done with that. And they've just got bolts for the overarm support there. Stickers were up there. A lot of interesting stuff there. Now see, this is intriguing to me too. I've not seen this. This is the hole that if you're following my Atlas mill build for my MH, this hole is what holds your the overarm cover that goes over this whole assembly. That hole goes there, and then this locks it in place. This has been split all the way down. So what I suspect they've done is that's what this plate is I'm wondering if they've gone in and drilled that all the way through to use as a pinch screw. This would normally be the little locking knobs, the Zamac locking knobs, and I produced these to lock that in place. Interesting. I don't know what they've done there. This has had a lot of changes to it from what was originally factory. What do we got here? A little bit of tooling with it. Nothing that I recognize right off the bat, or I'm going to go in and look at. Now see, there's a tool post. Was it adapted to this machine too? I don't know. I don't know what they've done. Interesting. Okay. So, is it worth $32.99 and freight to get it? No. As rare as this is, and looking at condition, if somebody had to have one of these machines, I'd say maybe this is a $2,000 machine to the right buyer. I mean, it's a wore out machine. It's going to be well used and abused. Would be a good basis for restoration. See, I also don't recognize this. Oh, yes, I do. We've talked about that. Maybe $2,000. I don't know. It's a fairly rare machine, but like I say, it's well used and abused. Anyway, let's move on, see if we see something else worth looking at. But we're gonna get out of here before too long, because we're spending a lot of time today. Cast iron cross slide casting, $49.99 and $34.50 delivery. We've looked at this seller before, and he's got the cast iron base below it for $99.99 and $115.30 delivery. No, this cross slide casting, no screw. This is just a stripped down casting. It's $50 in your door. $50 in your door. No more than that. Look at the wear on it. Look at all of the wear pattern in there. Yeah, you're gonna have to go in and re-scrape this, and so far I don't see any big gouges in it, but it's certainly not a certainly not a high dollar item. $50 in your door. There is it, the other side. It's a good casting. I mean, it'd be a good basis for a casting, but it's not. It's worth $50 in the door, is all it's worth. Yeah. Base down below $100 and another $115.30 to ship it. $215 basically. No, it's worth, you know, it's worth $75 in your door. Why would you need a cast iron, a base casting? You know, and down below he's put the Gibbs screws and nuts for him. Wants another $30 and $7.90 delivery, and that's off of those, you know, cross slides and stuff. Same way, another early cross slide assembly with nut and dial, $80 and $16.65. This is the same seller, part and amount. We're looking at a bunch of shit here. Milling machine counter shaft with pulleys, pre-owned, $199. And this is, there again, same seller. This all came off of that same machine. Got the knee below, $60 and $70 to ship it. No, and see, this is a later machine, because this is a counter shaft and pulley. This is only a two-step pulley on these. What's he, how do you describe it? See, he doesn't put anything. It says excellent condition on seller notes, but he doesn't really give any description of it. It's buyer beware. This is what you're going to get. Now, this is a good original counter shaft assembly. I see nothing wrong with this initially. Rusted up there, but you know, surface rust and stuff. But good counter shaft assembly. Oh, this might be an earlier with a 3-step, is it? Oh yeah, it is a 3-step. Good shape, but it's not worth. It's not worth what they want for it. $200 and $54 to ship it. No, it's worth half of that. It's worth, in your door, it's worth $175. You know, we'll be generous and say it's worth $175 in your door, but it's nowhere worth being $250. No. See, he's got the main body casting, $99.99 and $125.51 delivery. No, there's no reason to buy a main casting. It's worth $100 in your door. It's worth half. And we're going to look at it just because I'm interested in the serial number of it. Four-digit serial number. Later machine, got a U.S. patent number sticker on it. But see, everything's been stripped out of it. They've taken the switch out. You know, there's nothing. It's been stripped down. See, now if you, and look at how rusty that is. If you look at the sum of the parts, if you go through and look at all of his listings and everything, I would imagine he's got a listed thinking I'm going to guess and say $3,000. It's not worth that. You know, there's no reason to buy one of these castings. No cover on the back. I'm sure he's selling the cover separately. No headstock. Going to sell it. Yeah, it's ragged. You know, I mean, this is a fairly ragged machine there. Yeah, see, here's the back cover. He wants $50 and another $16.65 to ship it. I'm not going to go look at it, but that's all this is, you know, that back cover plate, $20. $20. Milling machine cover plate, door and speed chart, missing the locking clip, $20 and another $12 to deliver it. Now, see, that's not a bad deal. That's acceptable, but no, he's just You know, he's got the table here, 150 bucks and 95.62 delivery. Table's 125 bucks in your door. That's all they're worth. So I think that's about all we're going to look at. Yeah, too much for what they're... No. Here's somebody else milling machine, that back cover plate that goes on the back of the machine, $34.99 or best offer, and $6.45. It's a $20 plate. That's all it's worth. Yet the doors that open up with the speed charts on them, they only want like 20 bucks for them. Milling machine table, $174.99 and $18.99 delivery. They're still in that 200 bucks. No, they're 125 bucks in your door. That's all they're worth. All they're worth. This guy's parting out machines. Yeah, I don't see anything here that intrigues me that much. Yeah, a bunch of overpriced crap. Arbor support bar, 140 bucks and $23.49 shipping. No, that's just that standard old cold roll bevel on each end with a center pip in it, which you don't need any of that. That was just when they built them. You know, you can 75 bucks probably in your door. You can have cold roll material from any of the online suppliers, and you've got the exact same thing except new. 7/8 Arbor, 175 bucks. This is all from the same seller. Rusted up piece of shit. Milling machine frame, which amounts to the base and the main casting body, 275 bucks or best offer, and 134.06 delivery. We'll look at this, and then we're gonna call it. So, and the only reason we're looking at it is I see there's some label on there that I don't recognize. These are worth $150 in your door if you need them. And here, this was a guy that was going to build up a machine. M1-1A and M1-3, no cracks. Bought this frame 12 years ago to build a complete MOC with parts from another model because I wanted automatic feed. Well, it didn't happen. Good physical condition with scuffs, dents, scratches, corrosion, rust, cosmetic blemishes, and sticker adhesives. It's the shit nobody else wants, or the shit that's left over from a thing. So let's just look at, because I want to see this label is all I'm really interested in. Ferdinand J. Snow Company Machine Tools, New Jersey, 1959. This was a contracted part, probably contracted for military use. 011078. Atlas MSC. This is worth 150 bucks in your door. Look at how shitty this looks. Junk. 11078. Junk. 1955. I'm not going to look any closer. This is all just rusted up crap. So yeah, this has still got 12, 15, 20 years of grunge in it. Just crap. Old dried up oil. Which, I mean, doesn't matter if you're buying parts like this. You're going to redo them anyway, but not when they're so overpriced as this. Yeah. 150 bucks in your door, and you can't really get them in your door for 150 bucks. You know, this is stuff, this is giveaway stuff. I mean, you sell it locally and you're going to get, you know, if you run across somebody, you know, 50 bucks maybe, but why do you want it? Unless it's something very specialized, you're not going to want to build your own. You know, it's not worthwhile to assemble one. So, yeah, milling machine, motor, countershaft, hanger machine is pre-owned. 200 bucks or best. Now these guys are smoking dope. I'm not going to go any further than that. Anyway, that's our little spiel today. Hopefully you find something useful here. Comments, suggestions, leave them in the comments section for me below, guys. And as always, thanks for taking the time to watch.